The Phillies at this point have been on a playoff state, playing October baseball for the past 5 years. The stalwarts Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, and Ryan Howard being the three you knew night in and night out would produce for this team. Players like Hunter Pence, Shane Victorino, and Carlos Ruiz adding much needed depth and great play behind the big three. The rotation for the Phils around this time could be completely unhittable on the mound. Cole Hamels had been a Philly favorite for a couple years now, but the main ace of this team was Roy Halladay. Also, with Cliff Lee having some great years alongside Cole and Roy. But at this point, with a short ground out to second and Ryan falling to the ground in pain, no one knew that this would be the last playoff appearance for the Phils for the next 11 years. After the loss in the NLDS, the Phillies watched from the sidelines as the team that beat them, the St. Louis Cardinals, had an all-time classic World Series and took home the championship. The Phils took that time to regroup, and GM Ruben Amaro Jr. had plans for what needed to be done to have this team be the ones holding the championship at the end of the season. The injury to Ryan Howard was clearly on the mind of the GM when they brought the 41-year-old Jim Thome to play some first base for the team. Thome spent some early years of his Hall of Fame career with the team, and looked to be trying to make one last run at the title. The splash the GM made came about 10 days later, when the news came out that Jonathan Papelbon had inked a deal with the team. The two sides agreed upon a 4-year, $50 million deal that at the time was the largest deal signed by a reliever. While Papelbon was arguably the best closer in the game, there were many at the time that were nervous about this deal. Papelbon had been a well-known hothead that clashed with teammates and coaches in Boston, but with this signing, the Phillies bullpen added to their already top-ranked bullpen. Speaking of Papelbon, it looked like homegrown talent and bullpen staple Ryan Madson would be signing elsewhere in free agency. This came to fruition when he inked a deal to sign with the Reds. Other solid moves to solidify the Phillies roster for the upcoming season would be the re-signing of former MVP and Hall of Fame Philly Jimmy Rollins to a 4-year, $44 million deal, and smaller deals like the purchasing of the contract of Ty Wiggins to add some depth at first base. The final acquisition of the offseason for the Phils will be of Juan Pierre, adding a solid glove and some speed. While not as fast as he once was, he could probably still outrun almost anyone on the team. A small move that many fans did not notice took place 3 days before opening day. The Phillies signed a 16-year-old pitcher out of Venezuela by the name of Ranger Suarez. After many years in the Phillies minor league system, many people around Philadelphia know and love that name. Coming into the season, some had the Phillies as favorites to win the World Series. In a Bleacher Report article written by Colin Kennedy, they stated, "There should not be much question as to why the Phillies are favorites to win it all in 2012. After all, they've arguably 2 of the game's best 3 starters on their team, and a World Series MVP after that." Fans knew going into the season that the bats may start off slow, due to the injuries of Ryan Howard and Chase Utley. Chase Utley had been diagnosed with chondromalacia in both knees. Utley had had problems with his knees for many years before this point, but this was an indication he might be slowing down. The time to speculate what the Phillies season may be would come to an end when the Phillies took on the Pirates for opening day. The season started with an absolute showcase from Roy Halladay. After allowing 2 hits in the first inning and working out of the jam, only 2 other Pirates made it on base that day. Both players were hit by a pitch. The offensive side was nothing to write home about, only scoring 1 run, but with an amazing pitching performance from Halladay, they were mostly unneeded. The Phillies would go on to lose the 3-game series in Pittsburgh, losing the next 2 by being walked off. The first month did not go as planned for the Phils, finishing the month 11-12 and losing 3 games by walk-off. The batting was cold, with big names like Shane Victorino and Jimmy Rollins not leading the group the way people would have liked, with Ryan and Chase being absent, rocking a .228 and .235 batting average respectively. The absence of Chase was also felt with his replacement Freddie Galvis hitting a depressing .191 batting average and having only one more hit than strikeouts, 13 hits to 12 strikeouts. Thankfully, new acquisitions Juan Pierre and Ty Wigington have added some solid contact to the starting lineup to slightly make up for the slumping Stars. The hitters ended their month with what would become their second lowest batting average and their lowest OPS, home runs, and slugging of the year. The trends for this month of baseball continued after the first game, with the starting pitchers being the bright spot for the Phillies. The starters recorded season lows for opponent OPS, slugging, average, and BABIP. The team took more of a hit after their last walk-off loss of the month, when the news came out of one of their aces had been injured. After pitching 10 scoreless innings against the Giants, Cliff Lee went to the 15-day IL with a left oblique strain. Kyle Kendrick would come up and be the replacement starter for the time being. April was not the start to the season they were looking for, but a new month meant new chances for this team to turn the slow start around. The start of the month of May made it look like the team we saw in April was what this team now was, dropping 7 of the first 11 games of the month while being swept by the Mets at home to add insult to injury. During the tough stretch to start the month, the bats started to show signs of life. In a slugfest between the Braves and Atlanta, the bats awoke to the tune of 13 runs. Carlos Ruiz continued his hot start to the season, going 3 for 5 with a home run and 7 RBIs on the night. But all was for naught, because as the bats were waking up, the pitching faltered in this game, allowing 15 runs in total and a walk-off home run by the legendary third baseman Chipper Jones in the 11th inning. After the embarrassing sweep at the hands of the Mets, the Phils seemed to be more driven to play and knew the need to turn this team around. They did just that going into the series against the Padres, splitting the first 2 games to finish out the first 11 games of the month. But the team finally seemed to be getting it together. Vance Worley came in to start the last game of the series against the Padres and pitched a very solid 6 innings of baseball, allowing 6 hits, 3 runs, and striking out 9. The bats got to the Padres starting pitcher Clayton Richards early with a second inning 2-run home run off the bat of John Mayberry Jr., with Carlos Ruiz continuing to tear up the league with another 2-run home run in the 4th, and some solid base hits from Freddie Galvis and Mayberry again to drive in runs later in the game. The Phillies won the game with a 7-3 final score. The second game in the series against the Padres allowed the pitching, both bullpen and starting, to show that they had what it takes. Roy Halladay came in and pitched 7 pretty good innings, allowing just 2 runs and working his way through a couple jams. The offense did not help him, Qualls, or Papelbon, who pitched a solid inning each, scoring only 1 run off a Freddie Galvis double in the second inning. The Phillies took this decent momentum and took the next game in the series against the Padres and went on to win the next 5, sweeping the lowly Astros and Cubs along the way. Losing the next 4 games after the 5-game streak, they did go on a solid 4-game winning streak after, finishing the month by splitting the last 4 games, finishing the month with an overall record of 16-13. In total for the month, the overall best hitter was clearly Carlos Ruiz, finishing the month with an insane slash line of .418, .484, .696, and 1.180, and leading the team with 21 RBIs. Hunter Pence also had a solid month, hitting in the cleanup spot for the Phils, matching 8 home runs and driving in 18 runs, tied for third on the team with Freddie Galvis and Shane Victorino. 27-25 is not the way the Phils were looking to start the first 50-some games, but they still had a lot of time to bring this team to the powerhouse a lot thought they could be. But then, they showed everyone that this team is not the one everyone thought they were. Starting the month of June, they won their first game. This is the only time they would be over 500 for the month, dropping the next 2 to the Marlins to lose the series. They then got swept in 4 games in a series at home to the Dodgers. What made the 6-game skid even tougher was, of 4 of those games, they were 1-run losses. They then went on to go 8-8 in the last 16 of the month. There really isn't too much to be happy about with this month. The bats were fine, but could not get hits when they mattered the most. The pitching couldn't contain the runs when they had to, and that combined for a losing combo. There were about 2 good things that happened this month for the Phils, and both were moves to help the future. The MLB draft happened, and 2 players that would be considered solid in today's game would be Dylan Cousins and Joe Manaply. Dylan made a name for himself after mashing 40 home runs in Double-A ball from the Fighting Phils and being named Player of the Year for the Double-A League. He would turn it to nothing in the majors. Joe Manaply would never be an amazing pitcher, but did make the All-Star game for the D-backs in 2022. The other move for the future would be the dumping of Jim Thome to the Orioles for 2 prospects. Thome had been pretty okay so far for the Phils, and the Phils tried to take advantage of that. Thome would play the rest of the season for the Orioles and would then retire in the offseason. The Phils received 2 pitchers who would not even sniff the majors during their time in the Phillies minor league system. If June didn't kill the Phillies' 2012 season, July may have put their postseason dreams to bed. Including the last 4 games of June, the Phils went 1-10 going into the All-Star break. A team some thought would be the best team in the league. A team that 95 to 99% thought would at least make the playoffs. Now just another team limping into the All-Star break with a losing record and on a god-awful losing streak. 2 players from the team went to Kansas City to represent the Phils in the 2012 All-Star game. Carlos Ruiz and Cole Hamels were voted on by the fans to go to the Midsummer Classic. We have talked about Carlos Ruiz a lot this video. Honestly, we have not talked about him enough. His first half stats are just insane to look at, with a slash line of .35, .412, and .484, with a .996, hitting 13 home runs, 46 RBIs, and a .362 BABIP. Insane piece of hitting from an always solid catcher. He has seen a lot in his time with Philadelphia, but this is one of, if not his best stretch of hitting. Cole Hamels was also going into the All-Star break with a solid performance in the first half of the season, leading the Phils in opponent average with them hitting .233 off him, and him fanning 118 in the first half of the season. After a pretty average stretch after the All-Star break where they either went on a winning streak or went on a losing streak, GM Ruben Amaro decided it was time to make some changes. The first move made would be the trade of longtime Philly Shane Victorino. Shane was selected in the Rule 5 draft in 2004 from the LA Dodgers, and after that worked his way to a centerpiece to a World Series championship team in 2008. Nicknamed the Flying Hawaiian, he was a huge fan favorite for his all-around play on the field, leading the league in triples multiple times and being a 3-time Gold Glover in the NL. He was shipped to the LA Dodgers for a batch of what turned out to be 3 prospects. Josh Lindbaum, Ethan Martin, and Stephen Jaron were sent back in the deal. Josh Lindbaum was a 25-year-old reliever who had only pitched 26 games for the Phillies. His relevance may have been inflated by a below-average ERA that was pretty misleading in comparison to his FIP. 3.02 in ERA with a 5.07 FIP. Ethan Martin was a former first-round pick in 2008 by the Dodgers, who really did not pan out. His only time spent in the majors was with the Phillies after this trade happened. The next trade would happen the same day when Hunter Pence would be shipped to the San Francisco Giants for some prospects. Tommy Joseph was a big-name prospect that was sent back in the trade, being the Giants' number 2 prospect at the time. He spent 2 seasons with the Phillies and played pretty solidly with some power and about a .250 average. Nate Scherholtz was another piece of the deal that was very similar to Josh Lindbaum in the Shane Victorino deal. An okay MLB vet that only played this half of the season with the Phils did not do much in their time here. Both deals also had a player that did not do anything in the minors and was out of the league in a few years. Right before all these trades went down, the Phillies were able to ink ace Cole Hamels to a 6-year, $144 million deal. By the end of the year, Cole will finish 8th in Cy Young after finishing 5th the year before. At the time of being signed, this contract became the second most expensive contract signed. A well-earned contract that a Phillies all-timer earned every cent of. The trades were a large sign of things to come for the Phillies in the next couple of years as the team continued to slow down. The Phillies would catch fire occasionally and looked like they could make a run at the playoffs as the year went on, but the horrible start of the year was too much for them to overcome. On September 28th, after a walk-off home run by Carlos Lee in the bottom of the 9th, the Phillies were officially eliminated from playoff contention. Right around that time, a very momentous occasion happened for one of the best players of their time. Ryan Howard became the second fastest player in history to hit 300 home runs based on games played, with and 93. A true masher that could have been even better in his time without injuries. A sad year for the team with high hopes going into the year. A team with more aces than any team in their starting pitching lineup. A team with 2 past MVPs and other players who could put up and have put up MVP-like seasons in the past. As the stars of the past start to die out, they couldn't really look at the farm system for future stars. A farm system that ranked in the lower third of many rankings from the time. Unless the stars of the past could turn back time, the organization spent some money to revamp the lineup, or some unlikely jumps were made in the farm system, this team looked to be on their way to the MLB basement. And thank you guys for watching, if anyone watched. I was very uncomfortable with this. I had this idea and didn't have fun making it. I don't like voiceover stuff. But I'll get more comfortable as we go on. I kind of want to make this a series, kind of leading up to the most recent season for the Phillies. So if you like it, give it a like, subscribe, or whatever. Whatever, man. 2012 feels trash. 2013 is no better. Bye.